Well, it's 3 o'clock, and I posted that I do a Facebook Live. Again, I don't know if anybody's going to be there, and I wrote that I was going to talk on soul hunger, and so that's what we'll do. What is soul? What is hunger? What are we talking about? So, this book that I did, and I know it's coming out backwards, but it's capital U, capital R. You Are Not What You Eat, A Doctor's Guide to Transform Your Pain to Pearls of Wisdom and Joy. Dr. Tzvi Pearlstein. That's me. What is soul hunger? And what are we all looking for? And are we the same? Or are we different? Are we all so different? Are we the same, coming from the same place? What's the soul? We're soul and body. The brain is physical. It's got a function. Intellect, the mind. The heart is physical. We talk about the emotions. The rest of the body. And what's the soul? The soul is us. The body, including the brain, the heart, and the rest of the physical, is this what I'm calling the spacesuit that we wear. It's the integrated collection of living machines that God gave us as our home, our temporary immediate home, while we're here on this brief journey, moment by moment, actualizing our mission as soul. What is soul? Divine soul. It is a minuscule, non-physical, minuscule piece of godliness housed in the body. And it is who we are. It is our identity. And I wasn't brought up with that identity, knowing that was me. I was looking and creating identities, those thrown on me and those that I undertook, not knowing where to go. I wasn't given the direction to connect as a divine soul and how to use my brain and my heart and my body in the service and in the connection to the source, God. So, what is soul hunger? Let's talk about a destructive, harmful, unhealthy habit to get some answers. So, first, knowing the soul and the body is how we come in here, is the soul's in prison. It's trapped in the body. Assuming that it was free before and perhaps free after, we don't really know, but assuming it's in prison in the body. And so we see people trying to escape, creating situations which give a sense of temporary freedom. Let's look at smoking. You know, I've told people that connected, now reconnected. I've told people that smoking has, as unhealthy as it is, as poisonous as it is to every cell of the body. Why? Because carbon monoxide is coming in and replacing O2 oxygen. CO replaces O2, binding to hemoglobin, the red cells, which are our lifeblood. Oxygen being the most important nutrient our cells need. So what could be healthy about smoking? Well, there are two things to consider. First is, if you watch people smoke, they take deep breaths generally. Breathing. Spiritual. Spire refers to breathing. Breathing is essential for life. Most important thing. You stop breathing, that's it. A respirator can keep you going. Once the breath stops, you're done. So smoking, you're taking deep breaths. Unfortunately, it's with toxins rather than healthy air and oxygen. But what we're seeing is that deep breathing is an addiction. Forgetting nicotine for the moment. That deep breathing that you'll see in people who smoke is an addiction. And we yearn for that. And what else is potentially positive about smoking? If somebody's smoking, watch them. Watch their face and their eyes. They typically separate from the current environment, whether it's home or work. And life is deceptive. Deception, distraction, diversion. That's what we see. Lies rather than truth. So we yearn for truth. So separating from the lies would be a goal to find truth. The question is, where are we looking for truth? So the person smoking is temporarily separating, provides a sense of relief. Separating from the phone, from the car, from the work, from the bills, from the kids, from the finances, from the relationships, from the IRS, from the news. Separating. It's a healthy thing. If then you connect to something meaningful. So, taking from that message, let's look at weight loss. You're talking about diets. And you have many, hundreds of diets that have been proposed. It's all about things in the physical. Now they'll sell you, whether it's pills, they'll sell you your meals. They'll give you, it's $100 billion business. Just in America. It's a worldwide issue. We've got a pandemic, adults and kids with obesity. What's that all about? Soul hunger. The soul is hungry, but the soul, who we are, which is non-physical, actualizes in the physical. It's not a spiritual world, it's a physical world where we can bring out the godliness and the spirit and soul aspects. But God plays games with us. God's hiding. God's playing hide and go seek, a favorite kid's game. But the kid who's hiding, ultimately, is hiding. But at some point, he wants to be found. So, God wants us to find God in everything. Certainly first in ourselves. And that's truth. And that's soul hunger, finding the truth. So, why do we have obesity epidemic, pandemic, in America and worldwide? I think the biggest reason is not the weight loss business. The biggest reason is the soul is hungry and we feel a hunger, but we're going to false foods, false soul foods. We need the real deal. We don't like our body, change the body. How many ways can you do that? We have plastic surgeons. We have a lot of things going on, changing the body, even proposing sex changes. It's not about changing the physical. It's accepting what we are given. But it's about how we use it, how we approach life, and what our true meaningful connections are. So you're going to put food for soul hunger, you're not going to satisfy the soul. You just keep eating. You can do a lot of healthy and unhealthy things thinking you're feeding the soul, but you're not going to satisfy. So you can go to the gym, you can run 20, 30 miles, you can do sexual things, you can do all kinds of things. You can do drugs for soul hunger. It's not going to satisfy. What's going to satisfy is going to the truth. You know, it's interesting. Spiritual, spire, has to do with breathing. Respire, perspire, aspire, conspire, transpire, all has to do with breathing. Breathing is about taking in oxygen. Taking in oxygen. Breathing, spiritual. Breathing ritual. What does that mean? Ritual is something you do purposefully and repetitively that's going to be healthy and wholesome for you. And does what? Connects you to the God source, to God. You know, we said yesterday, talked about concepts of fun, happiness, and joy, which is a chapter in my book. And how, unfortunately, entertainers can be producing adrenaline while they're entertaining and yet not know happiness when they go home. And they're at the mercy of the drug, adrenaline, or a substitute drug. They need it. How do you learn happiness? Happiness is a tool. It's not an endpoint. But it requires a concept of God in your life. To be whole, you're a half of a whole. And your relationships, you want to be true. So the soul relates to the body, like you in your car, or you in your home, or you in a spacesuit, or scuba gear. It needs to be a relationship where you know how to use the tools you're given, the externals, and you know how to keep them in healthy, proper working order. But what happens if you don't know that you're a soul? You think you may have a soul. But what happens if you're not living as a soul? You're living simply as some external to the soul. Then your life is not true. It is what it is. But it's not true. I mean, for me, I had to find it, and for me it's no different from any science I've learned. That the soul needs to be connected to God, the source, to find truth and answer, and truth in life, happiness and success in life, in relationships, in family, in work, even in leisure choices. And what happens that we see people going to false answers, whether it be their work, their money. I mean, it doesn't mean you're not going to work or make money, but as the answer in life, or drugs, or things of the body, or all kinds of externals, from the body to clothing to, as wonderful as music is, things in music, the car, the house, places, things we do. But it starts with finding peace in finding yourself as a divine soul, connecting to the source, and that's soul food. knowing, learning, connecting as a divine soul is the big start. That's the soul food. And then connecting to God is the next step. Building that connection. Knowing how to use your body, how? In the service of God. So spiritual, to breathe rituals, means doing what? That everything you do, from waking in the morning to your full day, everything in the day, and sleeping, connects you to God, and to have the intention of that. And in the image of God, being what? A human being. Being's a verb. Being loving kindness. The same loving kindness we experience from the Creator. So, people look for answers in the physical. For example, in medicine and healing, they want a quick fix. We want a quick fix. Everybody wants a solution to pain. But pain can come from many different sources. I mean, just being alive can be a painful existence. And as I just smiled, that is a great feeling. It's hard to feel bad when you smile, even with pain. Just the soul in the body is a painful existence. Think about it. Why do kids go out on surfboards? Why do we go boating? Why do we go on vacation? Why do we play or listen to music? Why do we go running 20 miles and to make, as they say, endorphins? What's going on there? So to experience an out-of-body experience that we're just soul, it's kind of something that everybody would like. It's a freeing of the soul. So when I play my trumpet, that I say is my highest form of prayer meaning connecting to the source, to God, at the same time, it's kind of an out-of-body experience. Not really aware physically. It's more spiritual, of the soul or spirit. And people seek this. It's not going to come from food. It's not going to come from drugs. It's not going to come from unnecessary surgeries. People go to doctors from docere, Latin meaning docere, teacher. Means somebody who doesn't put a stumbling block before you, before the blind. You have a problem, you're looking for answers, you want help, you want the truth. Today, profit motive rules the roost in all areas. The goal is to find people, when you need help, to find people that are as truthful as possible, and that you feel like family, that they care for you. It's hard today. It's hard. So you need to be wary in medicine. You take, if you scrape your skin, you're a kid and you scrape your skin, it's frightening initially. Mom cleans it, puts a Band-Aid. Guess what? It's going to heal. How does it heal? We don't know. It heals. You can have the biggest surgery, but you're not healed. The healing comes from the source. That's your soul acting on your body, how you use your body, and the healing that we're endowed with from our Creator. How the body heals, invigorated by the soul. So take something like low back pain. How many people experience low back pain? 80+% of people, one time or another, experience low back pain. And it's like $100 billion being spent per year on low back pain. Many different possibilities. What's going on here? And do you need any of that? You know, anytime you have a pain, you can do one of three things. It can get better, stay the same, or get worse. Much of the time, if you don't abuse your body, things will improve. But sometimes can stay the same and sometimes get worse. But this is over time. You know, when you have a pain, there are certain emergencies. Low back pain is rarely an emergency. And there's a lot going on with low back pain. And now we have an MRI machine. Since 1977, when it was invented, we've got an MRI machine which we use as a truth machine. It was invented to detect cancer with NMR, nuclear magnetic resonance, that was able to distinguish between healthy and cancer tissue. So it's useful to detect cancer and infection. But then you started labeling diagnostic labels from things that weren't even requested by the treating physician, and we start seeing disc herniation, rotator cuff tear, torn meniscus. Never looked at a statistically significant population with no pain to determine what the normal, so to speak, occurrence of these diagnostic labels is. It's huge. It's huge, starting at a young age, and it increases dramatically with increasing age. And most of the pain has nothing to do with what's in MRI, because most of the pain is from a crazy pandemic. Just like we have the obesity pandemic, we've got a huge pandemic that is partly responsible for the obesity pandemic, and that's sedentary disease, that we have a sedentary lifestyle. We're sitting. We sit and not move much, if not most of the day. And at night, we're in bed and we sleep, not moving. And we're certainly not moving through full range of motion. And what happens, the muscles and ligaments will shorten, stiffen, tighten. And this happens over decades. You know, kids, they're not running around like we used to. And, you know, that's part of the obesity pandemic. But by the time we're 40, 50, 60 and up, the muscles and ligaments often have shortened, stiffened, tightened. And then suddenly, just with time and age, there's pain. And very often there can be a trigger, a step off, getting out of bed, a twist, a lift, some kind of an accident. And we think when they get the MRI that that's going to explain, as a truth machine, what's wrong. Very often it's an incidental finding that we're told we need surgery for. And how many people are told they need surgery and they don't have it and they turn out fine? How does that happen? If the MRI report from a radiologist who never sees the patient, if it's true. You know, you've got all kinds of infomercials and commercials. They want you to, in social media, they want you to send them your MRI results so they can interpret and tell you what you need. That's not where the answer is. Again, unless it's cancer or infection, it's not where the answer is. It's in knowing what's going on a human level and clinically, a history and physical exam. And very often in time, healing will happen, but it's not in your time. Your time, often you want a healing in a day or a week, and the doctor will see you twice or three times. He doesn't want to keep seeing you. That you think he doesn't know what he's doing because he's God, his surgery's God, the hospital's God, the pills are God. It's all God stuff, and you're ignoring God in the whole package of it. Well, healing in God's time, the science of godly healing, is important to know, so that with the process of healing, which is ongoing, whatever health provider you might go to can layer on top of godly healing instruction to you as soul, how you should be using your body to effect healing, but also to understand how things change from the point of view of godly healing. So, if you put a jagged stone in a running brook, over time, it'll smooth out. How does that happen? What happens in the body with time? And how do we adjust? So I'm right now in a situation, I've got rheumatoid arthritis. I need a lot of solutions of the physical. And I have osteoarthritis of both knees, such that I'm bone on bone in the medial compartment of both knees. So I'm going to undergo surgery, but I understand what I need, and I know that this is a process that, regardless of all the stem cell and regenerative talk, a lot of what's happening there, and the reason healthcare doesn't cover those processes is because are they real? Because in time, many, if not most people with pains are going to improve. They don't have bone-on-bone situation. And the fact that x-rays show something also doesn't mean, I've seen people with awful x-rays that do fine, and people with x-rays that might be considered normal that have huge pains. So manifestation of pain is not just of the physical. That was a real awakening for me when I practiced orthopedics, to find that whereas experiencing major trauma in my training, major accidents, major surgery, and getting to the community with back, neck, shoulder, knee pain, and many other pains, that the more I spoke with patients, the more I found that a lot of pain is from a non-physical source. What does that mean? Well, if the patient comes in complaining of pain, let's say low back pain is the example, and it's usually common. So let's say they're complaining of low back pain, and the doctor just assumes that's the one and only problem, and the one and only pain, and the one and only source of pain. And you don't have to touch the patient. Does he have to do a proper, full history to know what's going in this person's life? Relationships, social, financial, work, down to the smaller details in their life, all which may cause pain. Does he need to do that as the physician? And if he does that, will the patient think he's wacko? What is he? Priest, rabbi, psychiatrist? Why would he ask all kinds of questions? But what happens if the patient has back pain and they didn't fall off a ladder and something major physical didn't happen? Then what? Now, what happens if you find out that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or more major changes in the person's life, and you ask, what's most painful in your life? And they say, father's dying of cancer. Oh, sorry to hear that. I hope he does well. What's second most painful? I have a challenged son, and I don't know what to do, how to raise him properly, or what to do with him. Very concerned. What's third most painful in your life? Bills, divorce, trouble with bills, and work. What's next and you make a list, and number 10 becomes low back pain. What happens if that's hidden from the doctor? What happens if the doctors don't unravel what's really going on? And what's the solution? And how does this person reconnect? How do they establish pain relief, wholesomeness, peace, harmony in their life? There's a soul hunger. There's a hunger for harmony, for peace, for relief of pain, and balance. Sometimes we go the wrong way. We want to jump out of our body. It might be with a sex change. Not realizing going into another body, going to have a lot of the same challenges. You know, if you're given certain things, there are certain things you can change, practically speaking. But there are things that make no sense. I'm not being a judge. You know, we learn to judge everything. You know what color is on the wall, that's blinds behind. It's not a map. It's not, you know, we know what's what. My book here is a book, and it's the book. It's not backwards. For you, it's backwards, but you are not what you eat. And so we judge, but you judge favorably. Maybe you be strict with yourself to make yourself better, a better human. But others, you judge favorably, and you want to be helpful. You know, we're commanded from God to love all of God's creations. You don't have to like, but loving, you know, in the Hebrew, love is Ava. And the letters in Hebrew have a number of equivalents, called gematria, and the number equivalents of Abba is 13. And Echad, meaning unity, oneness, is also 13. Same number. You know, to love means to want to connect. To love God, you want to connect with God. You want to realize that you are a piece of godliness. And with the body, which gives us garments, so to speak, the body gives us garments of thought, speech, and action. Thought is hidden. Speech can be truthful or deceptive. You can judge what you're hearing, whether it's from the news or politics or science, from the doctors, from the lawyers. So, you know, it's a matter of finding truth. You know, when we talk about spiritual, to breathe the rituals, what does that mean? It means that, you know, the soul needs to feed, and when you feed it properly, it grows conceptually like a sphere, or an energy sphere, let's say, or a sphere that grows in layers. So you can put layers on, layers from what you're doing in the physical that you repeat, a good layer, like rings on a tree. When you're repeating something of goodness day by day, it becomes a thicker and thicker layer, and you're connecting in a stronger way to the source, to God, to the Creator, to the healer, to the Father or Mother, to the boss of everything, beyond our comprehension. So that's feeding the soul, learning of connection and acting of connection. Actions are most important. It's like demonstrating love to a partner is in how you behave with them. Humility, respect, honor, consideration. attention, giving them your time. Most important gift that we have after life is our time to give to God, a partner, spouse, kids, family, community, whoever we're looking to show loving kindness to help. So the idea of love is to make connection, unity. First thing is to connect with yourself, because we have to figure that out. We have to figure that out. Growing up, we might not know who we are. We're created by soul and body from God, our parents, where we are, culture, all the influences. And at some point, we have the ability to knowingly make choices. Now, there's a lot of things to talk about to explain how it all works. I'm going to bring up the lobster for some discussion. And I learned some of this from Rabbi Avram Tversky, who was a psychiatrist and a very learned rabbi, passed away in recent time. I learned a lot from him. So the story goes that he was sitting in a dentist's office and he happened to see in a magazine something about the life cycle of the lobster. So I'll share that the lobster is a soft creature with a hard shell. And what happens is that soft creature grows, but the shell doesn't grow. It's kind of like our brain in the skull, and when the head is traumatized and the brain swells, the skull doesn't expand, so you need to either shrink the swelling with heavy-duty intravenous steroids or burr holes in the skull to allow expansion and freedom of the skull. So what does the lobster do? The creature is a soft creature in a hard shell. It grows and it becomes uncomfortable, so to speak, or painful. So it has to go, when the shell is over confining, has to go find a place to hide, shed the shell, the exoskeleton. It imbibes a lot of water. It grows even much more, and then grows a new shell. And it's hiding in a crevice, let's say, because when it sheds the shell, it's not protected. So it can be eaten by other lobsters, by octopus, fish, other creatures. So, and then it grows a new, more accommodating shell. And this happens over and over. It's kind of like the caterpillar to butterfly, where the caterpillar goes through this physical metamorphosis, huge physical transformation, but it's got to go through a cocoon phase. And then comes out, not as a caterpillar, multi-legged crawling caterpillar, but as a beautiful winged flying butterfly. So what's going on? And how does this relate to us? I'll just share a little bit. That we have the ability, if we feed our soul, to go from caterpillar to butterfly. Not just once, but multiply in our life cycle, on the journey. Our soul has the ability, it's not our body doing a physical transformation, but we as soul entities can undergo soul transformation analogous to caterpillar to butterfly. But in between is the cocoon phase. The cocoon phase. And the lobster does this multiply as we can. And just like the cocoon phase, there's the dark hidden crevice phase that the lobster needs to hide, the soft creature. So what is our softness? The soul, our real self. And the body and concepts thrown on us are the hard shell. You know, we talk about terrible twos, where the child who's needy and told what to do suddenly rebels and says no to everything. And teenage years, where certain teenagers rebel, they want to eject the shackles that have been thrown on them. Midlife crises. These are transformative periods. They're part of the process of soul and body change growth. But this can be properly programmed and used to our benefit. And perhaps we need to look and understand what is really going on and how these changes manifest in the physical, particularly the head and the heart. What's going on? It can be very confusing because there's no concept of God or soul purposely in American medicine. And I believe there needs to be. I believe we need to be able to talk collectively about who we are as divine soul entities that has to have a connection with the body that's wholesome, that's smart and wise, that harmony is achieved, health is achieved, wellness are achieved. And it's about understanding more than delivering all kinds of things in the physical. You know, you got all kinds of wellness things going on out there. But they're about physical feel-good things. What about addressing who we are as soul entities? And what does that mean? Are we so needy? You know, is it about living to please physical pleasure or living to serve God? So I think I've spoken enough here, and I don't know if anybody's listening, but if I continue to do this, and I'll try, and I've got a lot of things I talk about in this book. I don't know, it looks like it's showing up backwards. You Are Not What You Eat, A Doctor's Guide to Transform Your Pain to Pearls of Wisdom and Joy. I needed to find answers. So I right now have my relationship with our God, not my God, our God. There's one God for all of us. And how we connect, you've got to find the technology that connects you. But I've got 3 daughters, 3 grandkids, and I need to do what I can to make a difference. I put out a couple of books, got some inventions, tried to make things happen. I'm not a businessman. I don't know how to do business, but I know a little bit about what's going on in healthcare. I have a lot to talk about, a lot going to come up as long as I continue this. I need to stay motivated to do this, and we'll see if anybody's listening, and hopefully the goal is to create a discussion, to have as many people involved as possible discussing a whole series of issues. Perhaps I answered some questions that you may have in what was spoken about. I hope to create answers, hopefully, for a lot of questions. And whoever is listening, we have a connection. Let's make it worthwhile. And it's Friday. For me, Shabbos coming up. Shabbos, same letters as Teshuvah. Teshuvah means basically redemption, to return to your true self, to be able to shed those hard layers, those hard lobster shell layers that are confining, and free yourself up and free all the stress energies of the week. Let them all dissipate, that you have one day that God demonstrated us we need to use to connect with God, to remind ourselves who we are, and never to forget, and to be in the service of God with loving kindness in all our relationships. You and other people, all people, you and yourself, you and God, and you and animals, plants, and the physical world. So everybody have good evening, good weekend, good Shabbos to those who observe, and to be continued.